They already know. Your manager already knows you're being let go. HR already has the paperwork. The meeting is already on the calendar. You just haven't been told yet. That's how it works. Terminations don't happen in a moment. They happen over weeks, sometimes months. There's a process. There are conversations happening above you. And by the time someone sits you down, every decision has already been made. But here's what they count on. They count on you not seeing it coming. Because an employee who sees it coming has time to prepare, has time to protect themselves, has time to make moves before the rug gets pulled. I'm going to walk you through 7 signs that your job is in danger. And I'll also tell you something at the end that most people in this situation get completely backwards. The mistake that turns a recoverable situation into an unrecoverable one. Stay with me on that. It matters more than the signs. But first, the signs. Here's what most people believe about getting fired. They believe it comes out of nowhere. One bad review, one wrong move, one conversation that goes sideways, and then suddenly, you're out. That's almost never how it actually happens. Terminations are processes, not events. By the time your manager has that conversation with you, they've already had it with HR. They've already documented. They've already decided. The meeting where they tell you is the last step, not the first, which means the signs were there before the meeting, weeks before, sometimes months. Most people miss them because they're not looking for them, or because they see them and explain them away, or because they want so badly for things to be fine that they convince themselves they are. That's the trap, and it's the most expensive one you can fall into. Because the window between the first sign and the last conversation, that's your window. That's when you still have leverage. That's when you can still make moves that protect you. Once you're in that final meeting, the window is closed. So let's make sure you don't miss it. Sign 1, your manager stops investing in you. Think about what investment looks like when things are going well. Feedback, coaching, stretch assignments, conversations about where you want to go, inclusion in decisions, being asked for your opinion. Now think about what the opposite looks like. The feedback dries up. Not because you stopped needing it, because they stopped giving it. You're no longer being considered for projects that require a future. You're not in the rooms where decisions are being made. Your manager has stopped asking where you want to go, because they already know where you're going. This is the first and most important sign. Because it's the earliest one. Managers don't stop developing people they're keeping. They stop developing people they've already mentally moved on from. When someone in leadership has made a decision about your future, their behavior shifts, often, before they've said a single word to you. They're not being cruel, they're just no longer managing someone with a future at this company. And that shift shows up in how much time and attention they're willing to spend on you. If your manager has stopped giving you feedback, stopped including you, stopped investing, that's not them being busy. That's them having already moved on. Sign 2. You're being quietly excluded. The meetings you used to be in, you're not invited anymore. The email threads you were always CC'd on, you stopped appearing on them. Decisions that used to involve your input are being made around you. Projects that would naturally fall in your lane are going to someone else. It starts small, easy to dismiss. Maybe the meeting format changed. Maybe someone else just had capacity. Maybe it was an oversight. It's not an oversight. Exclusion is how companies begin the process of disconnecting someone from the operation. When you're being let go, your access to information, projects, and decisions gets quietly dialed back before anything is official. This is partly logistical, they're already redistributing your responsibilities, and partly protective, they don't want you making commitments or decisions that will outlast your employment, so they start pulling you out of the loop, gradually, in ways that each seem individually explainable. But patterns are more honest than individual incidents. If you look at the last 30 days and you're showing up in fewer rooms, fewer conversations, fewer decisions than you were 60 days ago, that's not a coincidence. That's a pattern. And patterns in the workplace are almost always intentional. Sign 3. Your workload shifts in a way that doesn't make sense. This one goes 2 directions, and both of them are warning signs. The first is obvious. Your work dries up, projects get redirected, assignments get reassigned. You find yourself with less to do than you've had in months, and nobody's explaining why. But the second version is the one people miss, because it feels like the opposite of a problem. Suddenly, you're buried in low-stakes work, busy work, administrative tasks that feel important but aren't going anywhere. Your calendar is full, but nothing you're doing is visible, strategic, or tied to the company's priorities. Both versions mean the same thing. You've been removed from real work. Either they've stopped assigning it, or they've replaced it with noise to keep you occupied while everything else gets redistributed quietly around you. Ask yourself this. In the last month, have you done anything that a senior leader would notice? Anything that moved something important forward? Anything that would be missed if it hadn't happened? If the answer is no, that's not a slow week, that's a signal. Sign 4. Everything starts going in writing. Your manager has always given you feedback in conversation. Casual, verbal, in the flow of a normal, workday. And then something shifts. Suddenly, your performance is being discussed over email. Suddenly, missed deadlines get documented in follow-up messages. Suddenly, your manager is copying HR on things that used to be between just the two of you. That shift is not administrative. That shift is legal preparation. Companies have to document performance issues before they can terminate someone. It protects them from wrongful termination claims. It creates a paper trail that justifies the decision. And the moment HR gets involved in your day-to-day performance conversations, that trail has already started. Most employees don't know this. They see the email follow-ups and think their manager is just being more organized. They see the HRCC and assume it's a new process. They don't realize they're reading the opening pages of their termination file. Here's what you need to understand. Once documentation starts, you're in a formal process, whether or not anyone has told you that. And, in a formal process, everything you say, every response you send, every behavior you exhibit is part of the record. This is not the time to get defensive, emotional, or erratic. This is the time to get very clear, very professional, and very strategic about every single move you make. Let me tell you about a man named Marcus. Marcus had been a regional sales director at a logistics company for 6 years. Solid performer, well-liked by his team, never had a bad review. About 8 months before he was let go, things started to shift. His manager stopped including him in the quarterly strategy calls. He noticed, asked about it, was told the format had changed. Projects he'd been leading got quietly handed to a colleague. He was told she had more bandwidth. His one-on-ones got shorter, more transactional. The coaching conversations stopped. Then the emails started. Small things, a missed follow-up, a report that came in late. Things that would have been handled in a quick conversation before were now documented in writing with HR copied. Marcus told himself he was reading too much into it. His numbers were fine. He'd been there 6 years. Surely they would have said something if there was a real problem. They hadn't said anything, because they didn't need to. They were building the file. 8 months after the first sign, Marcus was called into a meeting on a Tuesday afternoon with no agenda. His manager and an HR rep were already in the room when he arrived. It was over in 11 minutes. Marcus told me later that every sign was there. He just didn't know what he was looking at. He also told me that if he'd recognized even sign 1, he would have had time to line up another role on his own terms, to negotiate his exit, to leave with leverage instead of being handed a box. That window was open for 8 months. He didn't know to use it. You do. Sign 5. The warmth disappears. This one is subtle, and it's the one people are most likely to rationalize. Your manager used to check in, ask how you're doing, make small talk before the meeting starts. Now the conversations are transactional, short, professional in a way that feels clinical. They're not rude, they're just distant, like someone who has emotionally moved on but is still required to show up professionally. Here's what's happening. When a manager has made a decision about letting someone go, especially someone they've worked with for a while, there's often a psychological disengagement that happens before the official conversation. They stop investing emotionally because the relationship is already over in their mind. They're not doing it to hurt you. They're doing it because continuing to build something they're about to end feels dishonest, even to them. The coldness isn't personal, but it is information. When a long-standing working relationship suddenly turns purely transactional for no clear reason, something has changed in how that person sees your future at this company, and you deserve to take that seriously. Sign 6. Someone else is learning what you know. A new hire gets assigned to shadow you. A colleague suddenly needs to understand your process in detail. You're asked to document your workflows, your client relationships, your systems, things that have always just lived in your head, and it's framed as knowledge sharing, cross-training, building redundancy into the team. That framing isn't wrong, it's just incomplete. Knowledge transfer is one of the first operational steps companies take when they know someone is leaving, whether that person knows it or not. Before they can remove you from the equation, they have to make sure the equation still works without you. So they begin extracting what's in your head, systematically, politely, with a perfectly reasonable sounding explanation. Think about it from their perspective. They can't fire you and then scramble to figure out how the work gets done. The transition has to be planned, and the planning happens while you're still there, often without your knowledge. If someone is being trained on your work right now, you may already be in your transition period. You just haven't been told it's started. Sign 7. You already know, not the polished professional version of you, the version that wakes up at 3 in the morning, the version that checks your phone differently now, the version that has started quietly updating your resume even though you haven't admitted to yourself why. There is a part of you that has been tracking this, that has noticed the small things, that has felt the shift in energy, in access, in how people talk to you, and has been quietly storing that information even while the rest of you keeps going to work and telling yourself everything is fine. That part of you is not being paranoid. That part of you is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. We are extraordinarily good at reading social environments. We pick up on micro changes in tone, in attention, in inclusion. We notice when something is different even when we can't articulate exactly what it is. And most of the time when something feels off at work, it is off. We just talk ourselves out of trusting it. If you have been feeling like something is wrong, and you clicked on this video, that feeling brought you here for a reason. That's not anxiety, that's intelligence, and it deserves to be taken seriously. Now, I told you at the beginning there was a mistake most people make in this situation, one that turns a recoverable situation into an unrecoverable one. Here it is, they perform, they see the signs, consciously or not, and their response is to work harder, stay later, send more updates, over-communicate, become more visible, try to prove that they deserve to stay. And I understand why. It feels like the logical response. If the problem is performance, perform better. If the problem is visibility, become more visible. If the problem is fit, try harder to fit. But here's what's actually happening when you do that. You're spending your most valuable resource, your time and energy, trying to save a job that is already gone, while the window to protect yourself is still open. That window doesn't stay open forever. Every week you spend performing instead of preparing is a week you're not updating your network, not reaching out to recruiters, not documenting your accomplishments for your next interview, not lining up references, not exploring what else is out there, and then the meeting happens, and the window closes, and you're starting from zero, blindsided, emotionally raw, and without the leverage you would have had if you'd started 60 days earlier. The moment you see the signs, the real response isn't to perform harder for them, it's to prepare harder for yourself. Keep doing your job. Don't give them reasons to accelerate the timeline, but in parallel, quietly, professionally, without drama, you start building your exit on your terms. You update your resume, you reconnect with your network, You talk to recruiters. You explore your options. You make sure that when the conversation finally happens, you are not starting from zero. You are landing somewhere new, on your schedule, with your head up. That is the difference between being fired and choosing to leave. And it comes down entirely to whether you used the window while it was open. Here's the thing most people never say about getting fired. It's almost never actually about you. It's about a business decision that was made above your pay grade, a budget that changed, a direction that shifted, a new leader who came in with a different vision, a restructuring that was decided in a room you were never in. Sometimes it's about performance, but often, more often than people realize, it's about factors that have nothing to do with how well you've been doing your job, which means the shame that people carry when they lose a job, the feeling that they failed, that they weren't enough, that they should have done more, is often completely misplaced. You are not the first competent person to be let go from a job that changed around them. You won't be the last. And none of it says anything definitive about your value, your capability, or what you're capable of building next. What it says is that you were in a situation that ran its course, and now you get to choose what comes next. That choice is actually yours. If you see what's coming early enough to make it. If your manager has stopped developing you, that's a sign. If you're being quietly removed from rooms, decisions, and conversations, that's a sign. If your workload has shifted in a way that makes no sense, that's a sign. If feedback is suddenly going in writing and HR is in the loop, that's a sign. If the warmth in your working relationship has disappeared without explanation, that's a sign. If someone is being trained on your work right now, that's a sign. And if a part of you already knows something is wrong, that is the most important sign of all. 3 or more of these, and this isn't paranoia. This is a pattern, and the right response to a pattern isn't to panic. It isn't to confront. It isn't to work yourself into the ground trying to reverse something that may already be decided. The right response is to get clear, get quiet, and get moving. They may have already made their decision, but you still get to make yours. Make it now, while the window is open.